Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Natsuki Saturday podcast. Today we're going to be talking about applying to Cambridge, or really our journeys to Cambridge. I'm Luca, I study natural sciences.
I'm Caitlin, I study English.
This is the most ambitious crossover event since Infinity War.
Honestly, STEM and the arts coming together. They don't really hate each other, we just pretend we do.
Yeah.
It's just because you can relentlessly bully each other about a plethora of things, so...
Yeah, like, we actually have to do work, but also do valid things.
It's so true, though, because all my work is literally just, and what does this one semicolon mean? Like, that's not helpful. When is that going to help me? You're, like, splitting the atom.
Anyway, so, the journey to Cambridge.
Journey to Cambridge.
The journey to Cambridge. I guess it begins with birth, but that's not really relevant.
Into every generation, a Cambridge student is born.
we'll make it, education related. Obviously,
okay.
First stage of education, primary school.
Indeed.
Caitlin, were you clever in primary school?
I coped in primary school. I was good at English, but I didn't really know I was good at English because, and like reading, I was read to a lot as a kid because my mum worked in a library, but I didn't really know that I was good at it because they only had gifted and talented programs for the maths students.
Oh,
for the kids who were really good at maths, and they got taken out of the classroom, given little special desks, and they got to do the level 6 maths papers for their SATs rather than level 5. So I thought I was thick, which I am in some ways. I'm not good at maths.
Now's not the time for self-deprecation.
No, it's always the time for self-deprecation. But yeah, I was like fine. I did fine in primary school. I was kind of annoying probably because I used to get bored really quickly. So I would talk
ADHD
constantly. Just ADHD things. I would talk constantly. But yeah, I was okay. I don't think anyone thought I was like... Although, do you know who did stand me in primary school? Was my year 5 teacher who wrote, I don't know if anyone else did this, when they had shirts that used to get people to sign, like when you finish school.
Oh, yeah.
And she wrote on it, I'll proofread your first book.
Oh.
Tegwin, if you were out there, if you were still alive, because you were quite old at the time. I hope she's still alive. Maybe she's, oh God.
Oh no.
Anyway. 14 years ago, you wrote that on my shirt, and I still bring it up to this day. So clearly, it made a massive impression on me.
Wait, did you say you're a year 5 teacher?
Yes.
Year 5 wasn't 14 years ago. Year 5 was 2011, 2012 for us. So you do the maths.
And there we have summed up our entire friendship.
Nice.
Oh no. Okay, yeah. So however many years ago? 10 years ago? Yes. 9 years ago, she wrote that on my shirt, and it made a lasting impression on me. But yeah, I wasn't. I bet you were smart in primary school.
I guess looking back,
that's a yes. That is a yes.
You don't really know. I feel like in primary school, it's harder to tell. I guess. So I remember there's the iconic story of reception me. So the teacher asked about gravity, and I, having been an avid reader of the horrible science books, is that what they were called? Whatever they were.
Yes, I remember those. I was a horrible histories girl, but I had some
I still had loads of horrible histories. In fact, my collection is just around the corner there. We can break that out later. Group reading.
Crack a cold one open with
a cold horrible histories book. But so the teacher asked if anyone knew what gravity was, and I gave my definition of gravity. Granted, probably wasn't very good, but for a 4-year-old, maybe I was 5. I was either 4 or 5. It must have been quite good because they basically arranged a meeting for me with the deputy head to tell me how smart I was, and they phoned my parents to praise me.
Wow. Can you imagine if they did that at Cambridge?
everyone's
he
parents.
defined gravity in class.
Oh my god.
Get Stephen Hawking on the phone.
I think he's dead.
I can't think of another famous, but he is really all of the Natsuki's father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't even do Natsuki.
What
He
did
did his
do?
undergraduate.
Physics?
He did his undergraduate at Oxford. He did physics and chemistry. But he did his PhD at Cambridge.
Of course.
I don't know what I know all this stuff. I guess I
He
just paid
opted
attention.
up
I paid
the
attention to the
PhD.
theory of everything. He did his PhD at Tit Hall, but he was a fellow of Gonville and Keys, and so I believe Gonville and Keys has like a Stephen Hawking building or something. Walk past it. But I think so. I remember in like year 2, because I'm assuming you did the same thing where you had like reading levels and they assigned different levels to different books. Yeah. I remember being okay at reading in year 2, but I think I could be wrong here, but I also have this memory. So our old next door neighbours, one of them was a year below us, and I think I remember that she read novels before I did, and that was a bit like, maybe I'm not so clever. But that was, a while ago. Then year 5 was when my academic ability peaked, because in year 5 they realised that there were 4 of us who were finding the maths quite easy and it was a bit of a waste of our time. So we got separate teaching of maths where we got to do fun, interesting things. Some of which, so I remember learning this thing called like the Russian multiplication method or something, and I've never used that since. I've never been taught it since, but I remember it being fun at the time. There were 4 of us.
Wow.
And all 4 of us are now doing or are starting this year a mathematical degree. So they predicted quite well. So there was me doing physics, my friend Salm, who's doing mechanical engineering at Imperial, my friend Charlie, who's also doing mechanical engineering, but he took a gap year, he's starting this year, and then my friend Callum, who's doing accounting and finance, I think. So
wow,
they follow through with the maths.
So they predicted that.
They predicted.
Really? Your
they
school,
predicted.
Wow. Yeah, no, you would have been one of the kids that would have been like, wow, he's so smart. He gets taken out of class. I started a calligraphy club in primary school. That should give you some idea of what I was like in primary school. I also used to blatantly, the one thing I was good at in primary school was coming up with imaginary games for my friends, which probably is the formation of my English, the fact that I read so much, and also the fact that I blatantly used to just plagiarize things.
Nice.
And take them for my own. Not that I do that now, if any of my supervisors are listening.
Have to clear that up.
I do not plagiarize. I used to plagiarize plots from Doctor Who and then be like, let's play this game. And everyone be like, wow, she's a
child genius.
And it turns out, no.
Absolute prodigy.
Absolute lies. Just pure lies coming out of my mouth.
My apparently in primary school I was quite good at English too, though, because in year 6.
Of course you were. Of course. I mean,
it didn't carry on. It didn't carry on. But in year 6, again there was a special group, so we did all the same lessons and stuff. But then some lunchtimes, I think, or maybe it was during our lessons, but a few of us got taken out because we were the people that were the level 6 English people. There was quite a few more of us this time. I think it was probably like 8 of us. Maybe more, because my primary school, it was 2 classes per year, and I think where the mathsing was just from 1 class, I think this one was from 2 classes, so it was probably quite a few. But I remember the deputy head at the time, I forgot her name, but she was actually, she was the same deputy head who had praised me for knowing how to define gravity at the age of 4/5. And she was a savage critic. She really went in on your work, just making sure it was level 6. But it's quite funny because the person in our actual English lessons in class, the person I sat next to, he wasn't in the group. So his work, so often we do pair work, right? But for me, even though it was the same work, for me it would be marked by the deputy head, and for him it'd be marked by the class teacher. He would be showered in praise for work that I mostly did, but I would be criticised because my retelling of the sinking of the Titanic was a little bit too comedic. I was an aspiring member of the Footlights back then.
Aren't we all? Like that's why we're not in Footlights. It's because we're
This is
just
true.
both too funny. We're just too funny to be in Footlights. It's not
We
that.
should start our own, the hand lights. Oh,
That's
was...
the exact type of comedy that I mean.
Yes.
Comedy genius.
Comedy genius. So, the natural progression, secondary school.
Ah, yes. The land of dreams.
Secondary school. Where you basically went to a music academy, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I went to a music and language academy, which means that basically all the funding went to the music department, which was great for me because I played flute, don't really say much anymore. But yeah, so that was cool. But it also had a very good English department. I went to quite a big secondary school. I did go to a state secondary school. That is our ultimate difference, me and Luca. Grammar versus state. Who is cooler? Who would win in a fight? Me.
Who had lots of tuition for the 11 plus exam.
So see, I never did 11 plus. What was that like? What was the 11 plus like?
So I remember being quite bitter about having to practice for it because, so at first I didn't I just practiced in my own time, and like the practice papers I took I was doing pretty well at. Obviously you can buy lots of like sets of practice papers and things like that. But then I actually got like tutoring for it, but it was at this class, but I kind of enjoyed it because my friend Sam, who I've already mentioned, he went to the same one. And so, but the thing is, it was during the summer holiday between year 5 and 6, and it was twice a week. Each session was 3 hours. They really
shit.
Yeah, but as it happened, Sam and I both got full marks. So, and I remember there being some other people that and like they went to different primary school to me, but then I recognized them. They ended up going to the same secondary school as me, and I recognized them from the tutoring. So it was quite effective. But yeah, I guess I'm glad because the grammar schools where I live are just wow, for me just would have been a better experience.
He's being very careful to toe the line between being classist and just like being factually correct there, and we appreciate that. No, honestly, I'm like very lucky. I come from a place with very good state schools. So
fair enough.
Anyway, secondary school experience was not a vibe. Did not massively enjoy my time there. It was a good school, but yeah, it was. I mean, I think I did fine. My GCSEs were like good, but they also weren't probably good enough for me to apply to Oxford, like because obviously Oxford is more focused on GCSE, or you're told that they are. I don't know whether that's true.
If you don't mind sharing, do you remember your GCSE results?
Okay, so because I got 4 9s.
The questions people want to know the answers to.
Obviously, so I got 4 9s.
What subject was that in?
English Lit, English Language, RE, and music. I'm a musician.
She's a musician. She went to a music academy.
She did. I got an 8 in history, 7s in all 3 sciences because I did separate sciences. So that is my flex. I am a woman in STEM.
Woman in STEM, yes.
I was, yeah. And then a 7 in Spanish. And then I got a 6 in maths. That was my lowest grade. And it deeply upset me at the time because my maths teacher, who was called Chris Martin. Oh no, can't say that. My maths teacher at the time had said that he wanted everyone in our class to get 9, at least a 7. To get at least a 7. 7, 8s, and 9s. And everyone did, apart from me and this one other boy in my class. And I remember on GCSE results, they being like, I'm really sorry I got a 6 there. And he was like, it's okay, Caitlin, you never really liked maths, did you? And I was like, no, I really didn't. But yeah, it was fine. The thing is, I was in top set maths, and I really shouldn't have been in top set maths. I definitely should have been moved down because like I wasn't like smart enough to be in that class. But I'm also glad I wasn't because I placed too much value on my intelligence. so it would have crushed me. But yeah, that was my general gist of my secondary school experience.
Fair enough.
Pretty basic.
Pretty basic. I quite enjoyed secondary school because an all boys school. It's the age old saying Saturdays are for the boys. Well, guess what? Monday to Friday they're also for the boys. But secondary school was fun because like my school didn't seem to set very much homework just throughout the whole time, so didn't have to do all that much work. Basically played football every lunchtime. All boys school, what else would we do? I mean, we could play rugby, but I think they weren't fans of that for lunchtime. Say for PE. Violent. So for GCSEs we had sets for maths, English and science. I was top for all three, but I wasn't actually that great at English. It's quite funny though, because my top set English class, I think only one person got a 9 in both language and literature from that top set English class. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know how many people in mine did, but we had like 3 top sets in my year group.
We had 2 top sets because it was like, our school had 4 houses. Wait, actually, I think I'm trying to think. Oh no, so in years before GCSE, the houses would go in pairs, and so some lessons you'd have mixed with one other house. But then GCSEs they mixed it up for every all the houses, but they still had it that there were 2 top sets, 2 middle sets, 2 bottom sets. But English, I remember finding the English lessons kind of fun because I sat on a row with good people. And my English teacher didn't really like the class, but she liked my row for some reason. So,
What text did you do?
So we did poetry section. Then our Shakespeare was Macbeth, which, not too bad. Our novel was Spies, which I'm not such a fan of because
no one ever does that.
Well, we did. It was fine, but it was just kind of annoying to analyze. Like, if we'd been doing one of the actual established classics, that the other choices you could do, then I feel like it would have been much easier to analyze. Spies, you're really like grasping at things that don't really exist there. Then modern play, we did A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller, which was not too bad. I think it was kind of so it was enjoyable and annoying at the same time. Enjoyable because the story and stuff, it is an interesting read. Annoying because the English teacher, because it's a play, basically made us perform it instead of reading it, and it's a play about Italian Americans, and some of them do not have the Italian American accent, but an actual Italian accent. And you already know that the teacher always made me play that character just because everybody else sounded like Mario.
Luca Mazziano. No, I only ask because I find it interesting, because a lot of the time when you say you're doing an English degree, people are like, oh, I hated English. And I think normally the reason why because it's such a broad subject, it's impossible to hate the entire subject.
I definitely
it's like
don't.
People who say they hate reading. There's a book for everyone.
Knowledge.
But yeah, exactly. You are a man of many layers. Kafka. He is a Kafka collection.
He's a man with many brain cells.
Oh, truly. But yeah, no, people always like shit on English. And I think they're like, oh, it's so boring. But I think the reason why they find it boring is because they did bad texts at GCSE.
I definitely don't hate the subject. I think, like, as I say, Macbeth and A View from the Bridge were quite good, but Spies was quite bad. I think I do enjoy reading, and to an extent do enjoy analysing. I just wasn't so good at it, and that put me off a bit, I think. So in the Englishes, I got an 8 in literature and a 7 in language, which is not bad. I never found out.
Oh yeah, it's awful, Luca.
I never found out if I was close to a 9 in literature or not, because if I was, I probably would have got it remarked. But hey, that was some years ago now. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter, and yet.
So the thing I was going to come back to, that was also to do with prediction. So my GCSE maths class, they had the back row reserved for the clever ones, and there were 5 of us 5 of us on the back row, and of those 5, 4 are at Cambridge, and the 5th is at Imperial.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
prediction. Interestingly, though, one of those, so of those 4 at Cambridge, 2 Fiznatsky's, 1 doing engineering, person at Imperial does mechanical engineering, and then the 5th one, the 4th one at Cambridge, is actually doing history. And that was the one person who got the 9s in literature and language from our top set English class.
Fascinating.
Yeah, then I guess rest of GCSE results, because, you know, obviously that's what everyone cares about. So a couple of my exams were still in like A, B, whatever, but I just say it in the 9, like 1 to 9 system because it makes it easier. So 6 9s, so that was maths, further maths, which is one of the ones that's technically still ABC, but there was an A star, and that's the grade I got. So I'm just going to say, yeah, that's 9 equivalent.
So weird.
Then all 3 sciences and German. I was something of a linguist back in the day. I got full marks in my German speaking exam.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
But I don't remember it so well, which is a shame, because I'd love to pick up German again, but don't really have much time. I'd have to sacrifice a lot of other things to do that. I don't know if it's really worth it. Then got an 8 in English literature, 7 in English language, 7 in art, and a 6 in design. But product design, as everybody knows, is the most inferior subject that you can pick at any level of education. It's not even a real subject.
What about business?
Other than business.
Business is quite inferior because everyone that picks it thinks that they're going to be in Wolf of Wall Street.
They think they're going to start a business. See, the thing is, it's a bit mean, but the joke at my school was that the A-level selection for the A-level selection that was seen as inferior was design, business, and sports science.
Bullying. I don't even think my sixth form offered sports science or design. I don't.
Obviously,
is product design the
same?
Oh, okay. I have a friend that did product design. I'm not gonna bully him.
No, as nothing against design. I'm obviously just bitter because genuinely, design was the GCSE I put the most work into, only to get the worst grade, because I was quite lazy for GCSEs, and I remember year 11 parents' evening, the maths teacher being like, "Yeah, he'll definitely get a 9, but he's coasting at the moment."
Wow, can you imagine? I had to graft to get a 6. And do you know what really bothered me was people in English, and I bet you're going to say you're one of these people now, who did like zero work, like didn't even read the texts for English.
Oh no, I read
got the same grade as me.
Ooh,
I have a friend, and I love her very much, but she got a 9, which is the same grade as me, and she was like, "Yeah, I didn't read the books."
Wow.
It angered me so much.
I remember. So no, I did enough revision, I think. So I did revision for literature, and I got the higher grade in that. I did like some for language, but I remember. Did you do an example where you had to? So for literature, one of the plays you had to pull quotes from your head. You couldn't do it from an extract.
Yeah, we got a question. One of the questions was an extract, and then the other one was like a thematic one.
Yeah, because I spent a decent amount of time memorizing quotes from A View from the Bridge, and I was quite happy because the question we got about A View from the Bridge was like not generic, but like basically about the main themes, and almost all of the quotes that anyone had come up with could be used in some way for it. And so that one I was. The words were flowing out of me. I was something of a wizard with the pen at that point. And I believe that essay is the only reason I got an 8. I think all my other ones were subpar, and that one just saved me.
Ooh, calling yourself out there. Someone get AQA on the phone.
I remember looking at the Macbeth extract we got, and when it's just like it's an analysable extract, but it's just not one of the analysable extracts, if you get what I mean. It's like, it's just disappointment, sad Pikachu face. So yeah, Macbeth. I think I wrote twice as many pages for View from the Bridge than I did for Macbeth, and that was the same paper. So yeah.
See, 16-year-old Caitlin with her individuality complex, which she still has, would have loved to have got one of those little extracts that just wasn't quite like other girls, and would have required you to have properly read the play. But I think the one we got, I did Romeo and Juliet, which is still one of my favorite Shakespeare plays because I'm basic. Was like, it was probably Mercutio's Jewel or something like that, and I was low-key mad because I was like, I spent all this time memorizing this play, and it's one of the most basic like extracts in the whole thing. But yeah, I would have loved to have had an edgier extract to come because I'm that sort of person.
My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. I had something else to say, I think. Oh, so I did a little bit of an oopsie with my first couple of GCSE exams. I think I did, I'm going to say 3 exams. I think it was the first English literature paper, the first biology paper, and maybe the first chemistry paper. But I did all of those in an erasable pen, which you're not supposed to do. So had a bit of a panic, had to get my mum to phone up the school. Unfortunately, they have methods in place for when idiots like me do that. So it was fine in the end. And
wow.
what made it better, though, was I remember I wasn't the only one. I was a friend who had also done the same thing. But it all worked out in the end. So that was something
I would have had a breakdown, like genuinely.
Fortunately, we remained breakdown free, but I was very frantically Googling things. But I was a firm believer in the fact that they didn't make it clear enough that that wasn't something you could do. Because I have terrible handwriting, and I also am quite messy generally. So if I write a word wrong, I fully scribble it out instead of just putting a line through it. And I thought, I don't want the examiners to judge me. If there are no mistakes, they'll be like, yes, more marks, more power to him.
He is a genius.
He's a genius. He just thinks so hard before every sentence. Right. Next.
Speaking of breakdowns.
Oh.
Sixth form.
Sixth form.
Let's
the
go.
transition to sixth form. How was it?
I went to the biggest sixth form in the UK.
That
which
is
my biggest...
disproportionately recruited from by Oxbridge.
That's so true. This is like a really interesting point. If you watch documentaries, my sixth form is the 5th highest. It's a state sixth form, including all of the private schools in the country. The 5th highest recruited for Oxford and
wow.
Cambridge.
Which
is mental.
Is that just in terms of raw numbers or in terms of like percentage?
I have no idea.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked an English student a statistics question.
Exactly. But I know they did get something like 52 Oxbridge offers this year, and it was about the same the year that I got in. However, my secondary school, there were only 2 people. It was me and my best friend since I was 11. Were the 2 that got into Oxbridge, which is pretty cool.
That is good.
Yeah, but I didn't actually have that many people applying, to be fair, from my secondary school. But yeah, my sixth form, massive. So it's not really surprising that there is also a massive number of Oxbridge students that
fair enough
go there. But yeah, sixth form was okay. I did English literature, I did modern history, and I did law.
Oof.
It was a thrilling time. I also did an extended project on the Bechdel test because I am an angry feminist.
Wouldn't expect anything less.
Truly, she's an English student. She has a fringe. Of course, she's also an angry feminist. Yeah, it was fine. I hated law A level so much.
Oh, really?
But I only took it because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I realised in my second year of sixth form, no, Caitlin, you want to read books for the rest of your life.
You could read law books.
I could read law books, but they're really boring. They're really boring. Yeah, so that was it.
How
it was
did you
a good
find...
time.
Sorry, you were saying it was a good time. I was going to say, how did you find the transition in terms of work from GCSEs to A-levels?
I kind of enjoyed the fact that I no longer had to do anything STEM related. Like the earliest
Feeling attacked.
opportunity, the earliest opportunity I got, I cleansed my life of all STEM related instances, which meant that it was all essay subjects. And everyone, when I said what A levels I was doing, they were like, "Are you sure you want to do 3 essay subjects?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. Get me away from the maths, please." So it was actually quite good for me. I did enjoy it greatly. But yeah, I mean, it was hard. Obviously, it's harder than GCSE, but I don't think the workload was any different. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's fine.
Because I remember, so this from my mum specifically. I remember she told me about how she found the jump from GCSE maths to A-level maths really big. And so I wasn't worried, but I was a bit like, but I don't know, I didn't find the jump so bad because a lot of, well, all the subjects really seem to start by going over GCSE content. So and in terms of workload is less really because you've got all 3 periods and stuff. So I did 4 A levels, and I think if you look,
that was such a flex.
I have friends that did 5. If you look at, I think if you look at the general physical natural sciences cohort, I think I would guesstimate probably like well over half of them did the exact same A levels I did. So that's maths, further maths, physics, and chemistry. The classic. If I'd added biology to that, it would have been what at my school was known as the Asian 5. I don't know what it's known as at other schools. And before you say anything, it was the teachers that gave it that name.
Oh God, you can tell you went to a grammar school sometimes. Honestly, I love you very much, but wow.
But unfortunately, biology was not for me, so I didn't do the 5 from the place with the time zone that is ahead of us. Is that a less problematic way of saying it?
Yeah, obviously,
cool.
Far less problematic.
Sixth form, I thought sixth form was great. Firstly, there were girls.
This must have been a big deal. It was
a big deal. I hadn't had female interaction since like year 7.
Wow.
Oh, wow. No, I had gone to some parties and stuff in like year 10 and 11. It's very awkward at them though. Anyway, despite being a scientist, I did enjoy the fact there were girls there. That was big, and I just remember finding it quite fun that I was only doing the subjects I wanted to do, and the 3 periods were fun. Spent most of my 3 periods doing Sporkle because what else would you do? Sporkle was a lot of fun.
See, I had the amazing opportunity of just being able to walk into town and do what I like, but you couldn't do that.
I think if you had a 3 period, you could leave, but you had to come back. But in an hour, so the walk to town from my school was probably like 15 minutes, so you only really had half an hour there if you're doing a round trip in an hour. So it wasn't ideal. There was a small Sainsbury's around the corner, and people quite often went to that. In terms of the A levels I took, I think further maths was definitely my favourite. Physics was probably my least favourite A level, but then I decided to apply for physics at university for some reason.
You are a crazy person and enjoy causing yourself pain.
I think the A level, like the bigger picture of physics is really cool, and so I mainly just I read books from a few different subjects. So I read some physics books, some maths books, even computer science, and from the wider reading concluded that physics was my favourite of that. I think it just happened that in A-level physics you do just cover quite mundane content, and there's not a lot of mathematical rigour to it. I hate myself. And
mathematical rigour. Wow.
So A-level physics was not that great. I think A-level maths I enjoyed, but at times I did find it a bit easy, and I think a lot of people would also say that. But further maths, I thought, was good balance of having interesting content, but also being the right level of challenging, that it was fun. And then chemistry, I thought wasn't like, it was harder than maths. I'd say probably easier than physics, but I just found it enjoyable because I don't know, I found the content quite interesting compared to physics. So chemistry was good. Not going to call anyone out here, but my school prides itself on its physics department, but all the good physics teachers seem to have left.
Drama.
So had some less than ideal physics teaching, but it's all good. It's all good. So when did you decide you wanted to apply for Cambridge?
This is a very loaded question because you know the answer. So basically, I thought I wanted to do law up until, as I said, the second year of sixth form. And then I was like, shit. Like literally first week of September, I basically had spent the entire summer being like, yeah, no, I don't want to do law. I hate the subject. And then I had a conversation with my English teacher, and she was like, Caitlin, you're like really good at English. And I was like, shit, yeah, I am. And she was like, oh, so who's applying to Oxbridge for English? So by that point, I knew I wanted to do an English degree, but I'd never in a million years thought I'd get into Oxbridge. So I was like, absolutely not happening. She basically bullied me into applying because she was like, do you have a fifth option on your UCAS? And I was like, yeah, that I haven't decided for yet. And she was like, well, which one do you prefer, Oxford or Cambridge? Put me massively on the spot. I said Cambridge because it's prettier, which is a fact. I
hate to admit it, but Oxford is also quite pretty in places. I'm talking about the colleges here, not the city. The city's disgusting, but colleges.
Exactly. Yeah. So I then ended up applying to Cambridge, deciding I was going to apply to Cambridge 2 weeks before the deadline.
Wow.
My inner college deadline to hand in, because I don't know if you had that as well. Like you had a deadline that you had to give your like uni application to college before it went off to UCAS.
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
It get like approved by college. So I had that. Yeah, so mine was incredibly last minute. I'm like the opposite of all these people who are like, because people assume when you say you're at Cambridge, they're like, oh, so if you always want to go there. I was like, no, never. I literally, because my friend was applying, my best friend, and I knew she was applying, and I was like, I don't know why you're putting yourself through that. It's so stupid. Like, what's the point? And then I was like, surprise, I'm also applying.
Fair enough.
What about you? When did you decide?
So I wanted to apply to Cambridge. Since the womb. I guess ever since I started realistically thinking about university, I'd always had in the back of my mind, yeah, it would be cool to go to Oxford or Cambridge. And when I started learning more about what I wanted to do, really, I preferred Cambridge, and my very, very, very valid reasoning for picking Cambridge over Oxford was that physics at Oxford, the grade requirements was only A star AA, whereas at Cambridge it was A star A star A. But then I was applying to other universities that would have had A star A star A, and then I thought, even though there's nothing strange about it, in my mind I thought, if the place I really want to go has lower grades than some of the other places I'm applying to, therefore it's probably worse. I know it's obviously not, but
that's such interesting logic. Everyone's just got an insight into Luca's mind there.
But I didn't always want to do physics. So for the longest time, actually, I really wanted to do architecture. So when I was younger, I was very much into building and designing things. Obviously, it started with Lego. All my Lego is also around the corner with all my Horrible Histories books and other things. And I've got Lego there and lots of places. So I wanted to do architecture for ages. I think probably from like year 3 until year 10, I wanted to be an architect. Yeah, I was dedicated. I spent so much time building and designing houses and designing houses, then building them in Minecraft and Sims. Yeah, that was some good times.
So cool.
But then in year 10, in class we did these survey things where you fill out this really long survey, and then it basically says what jobs it thinks are most suited to you. And one that caught my attention was aerospace engineer, which is, designing things that fly. And I remember thinking, that's cool. Because by that point, because I'd always really enjoyed maths, but by that point I thought maybe I did want to do something that's a bit more mathematical, and obviously aerospace engineering, it was great. And then I originally wanted to apply. So the first time I thought about a specific course at Cambridge was I thought I wanted to do engineering at Cambridge, and then I as I looked into it more, I sort of thought, I really want to do because aerospace engineering just is about things that fly, but I specifically wanted to do astronautical engineering. I wanted to design things that went to space. And then as I got more into that, I started realizing that what I was actually interested in was the space at that point, rather than the rockets and stuff. I wish there was some way of being able to do both. Unfortunately, life is unfair. You have to pick something, unless you want to pay an additional several £1,000s to have more than one undergraduate degree. But that takes time and money. Anyway, and so I then decided I wanted to do astrophysics, and that's when I thought, yes, natural sciences, do astrophysics. And then I don't really remember when I decided, theoretically I still can do astrophysics. You don't have to pick your specialist subject until the third year. But I think I would rather do, and what I applied for other universities was just normal physics, because as I say, in all those options, I could still do astrophysics modules, and if I decide I like it, I can still focus on it in the later years when you have more choice. But I might decide I wanted to do something else. So I thought, rather than limit myself early on, I'd stick with just regular physics. Smart.
Valid.
Yeah.
That's all very valid.
So, what other Oh, sorry.
Oh.
No. You first.
No, I was just sorry. I'm back. No, I just find it fascinating that you wanted to go for majority of your education, and mine was just I'm going to Oxbridge. I didn't think I'd get in though. This is the thing.
We'll get onto that in a bit, I think. But we've got some other stuff to cover first. So, what other universities did you apply to, and why did you pick those?
Oh, this is tea. Okay, so I am Southern, so I didn't want to be too far away from home. So that was a distinct. Obviously, the best uni in the country, technically, for English, if you look at rankings, is Durham.
Oh, really?
But that was too far for me, so I was like, absolutely not. Yeah, it actually goes in terms of rankings. It might have changed this year. Durham, Oxford, Cambridge for English. Controversial. I prefer the English course at Cambridge to the one at Oxford. I never really even looked at Durham because it's way too far. So I applied. Bristol was my insurance because I'm edgy and cool and thought I'd fit in at Bristol. I did genuinely really like the uni as well.
Fair, yeah, understandable.
Exeter as well.
Exeter.
UCL, which I had to do another interview for, which was a time. That was the only London uni I applied to, and I thought I really, really wanted to go there, and then I visited, and I didn't really like it. But the course is still really cool there. They have some really cool modules, which was the same reason why I applied to Bristol and Exeter, because they had really cool modules. And then Winchester as well, which is my local uni, which was basically a fallback in case I had a breakdown and
prepared for the worst
from home. And also because they gave unconditional offers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If I was failing my A levels by the time the offers came out, my theory was I could just be Winchester.
Imagine how different your life would be.
Imagine how different my life would be. Yeah.
Or how different your life would be if you went to any of those universities, really.
Truly. Honestly, I can't imagine myself at Bristol. I don't think I'm cool enough to go to Bristol.
How was your UCL interview?
It was. I got into an argument with my interviewer. Well, it wasn't an argument, but I did ask him. So he was asking me questions. Obviously, that's how an interview works, Caitlin. Thank you for explaining.
Very cool.
And I asked him if I was have you actually read the book?
What book was it? Was it Jane Eyre?
No. Don't, not Jane Eyre.
We'll get on to Cambridge interviews in a bit.
On Beauty by Zadie Smith, which is what I did my coursework on for A-level. And I asked him if he'd actually read it because he was trying to get me to, he was like, I don't think it's post-colonial, which was like the entire thesis of my A-level coursework. And he was trying to tell me that it wasn't post-colonial, even though it quite obviously was. So I was getting quite mad. And then I had to do like a little like written answer. They gave me like an excerpt from a poem. I can't remember what the poem was now, and I had to write an answer to it. And it was really weird. It was like self-timed in this tiny little room. And there was this really weird boy in there, and he was breathing really loudly. Anyway, it was a very strange experience because it was pre my, not Oxford, I didn't apply to Oxford, pre my Cambridge interview. And I actually found out I got my offer from UCL the day of my Cambridge interview.
Oh, really?
Which was really weird. Like, I opened up my laptop for some reason that morning and was like, oh, I have an email from UCL. And it was saying that I'd got an offer from that, which I'm glad it said I got an offer, because if it said I'd been rejected, I would have had a meltdown. Probably wouldn't have gone to my Cambridge one. So yeah, but I find it weird that UCL interview for English. It's a bit of a random, like, so I don't know.
So you say UCL would have been where you want to go if you didn't get into Cambridge or didn't apply to Cambridge?
Well, initially it was, and then I visited and I didn't really like it. Yeah. I think if I'd properly thought about it when applying to London News, I probably should have applied to King's. KCL, because KCL. I think it's like a...
What, for dentistry? That's what they're known for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Dentistry. Yeah, but I think it would have...
Woman in STEM.
But I think that would have fitted me better. I'm not really sure why UCL. I don't know. But yeah. So then I ended up changing my mind to Bristol, which I really liked. Bristol's really cool. It's a very cool city. It has cool thrift shops and yeah, all that jazz.
My selection process for the universities I applied to, it's basically what you would expect of me at this point. So the 5 universities I applied to were all in the top 7 ranked for physics on the Complete University Guide, and the 2 I didn't apply for were Oxford and St Andrews. Oxford because, well, I couldn't. St Andrews because I didn't really want to go to Scotland. Nothing against Scotland, it's just quite far away. So the 5 I did apply to, Cambridge, obviously, Imperial, Durham, Nottingham and Lancaster. I had to interview for all of them except Durham.
Wow.
But, so did have a... So the Durham system is kind of annoying because obviously they have like a collegiate thing, but the college you put down on your UCAS application doesn't really mean anything. So the Durham college I applied to was St Chad's.
Of course it was.
Because, so firstly, the name is amazing. Secondly, I did actually go, I went to a Durham Open Day. I think that's the furthest north I've ever been for a Durham Open Day. I've never been to Scotland. I don't think I've gone further north. Yeah, Durham Open Day, St Chad's. It was genuinely the nicest, I thought, and I applied there because it's got a funny name. And I remember the woman who was showing us around saying, "Oh, we've had an influx of applications in the recent years, and we're not really sure why it is." But unfortunately, when I did get my Durham offer, it was not St Chad's. It was, I do not remember. But the Durham offer, Durham, Cambridge and Imperial all had the same standard offer of 2 A stars and an A. I think if I hadn't got into Cambridge, I would have wanted to go to Imperial. But I was really hoping that Imperial or Durham, one of them might give me an A-star AA offer, so I could put that as my insurance choice. Alas, they didn't. So I ended up rejecting both of those offers, and I put Nottingham as my insurance choice because that was an A-star AA offer. And then Lancaster, so the interview for Lancaster. So first of all, the academic who interviewed me was Italian, immediate chemistry. And that one, it was sort of in the style of an Oxbridge interview in that they didn't ask, I wasn't asked anything about my personal statement really. I was just asked to, do some physics on the whiteboard, but compared to what I was asked in my Cambridge interview. It was quite simple, but I did quite well at explaining the simple stuff, apparently. And so she was like, "Oh, I'm recommending you for the unconditional scheme." So I got the offer where if you make them your firm choice, you get an unconditional offer. Or if they were insurance choice, it was AAA. The Nottingham interview was more like informal. It was more just like a chat about your personal statement and stuff. That wasn't too bad. I did wonder why I had to go all the way to Nottingham though, because for the Nottingham interview, I'm pretty sure when they invite you to interview, they say something like, "We're already giving you an offer. We just want to meet you," or something. So I don't even know if you're meant to go, but it just seemed a bit pointless. And Lancaster is also very far away. But Nottingham and Lancaster, I ended up visiting and liked all the universities I applied to. Then last we've got Imperial interview. I actually did. On the day of my Nottingham interview, I got the email that invited me to a Cambridge interview. So that was a good day. Then by the time I did my Imperial interview, I'd actually already gotten the Cambridge offer, so I was not like too fussed about it. It was quite funny though, because they invited people to interview in batches, and then they'd give you tours and stuff. And so I think there were maybe 10 of us, and I kid you not, I think 7 of the 10 in my interview group were international students from Far East Asia.
Wow.
And more or less everybody there had also applied to Oxbridge. Basically everyone that applies to Imperial is the same. It just gets a few more international applicants because I assume because it's a London university. The London university seems to have quite a lot of international applicants. I did the interview, and it's quite a funny moment in the interview. So it was with this professor, and he did actually refer to my personal statement. He asked me to talk about this thing in my personal statement, and I basically recited the A-level textbook definition of something verbatim, and he was just like, "Sort of, but not really." And I think, well, that kind of illustrates how you're taught science. It seems like at every stage of your education, you're told that what you were previously taught is not necessarily wrong, but like a big simplification or generalized. That's a complete other topic. But then the last part of my... So I did answer some questions and stuff, sort of Oxbridge style. But then the last part of my Imperial interview, from my understanding, it was basically just the academic rambling about why Imperial was better than other universities and why I should go there. And he even, he didn't name drop Oxford and Cambridge, but I think he was working on the assumption that everyone also applied to Oxford and Cambridge. But he said something like, there are certain institutions that have a reputation for being somewhat elitist, or something like that. So he didn't name drop, but you could infer from what he was saying. And he seemed like a cool guy. Quite different from what you'd expect a physics professor at a top uni to be like. I think he had a normal shirt on, but it was unbuttoned really far, and he had a load of ear piercings in one ear and stuff.
Ooh,
but he was like a middle-aged man called Chris.
Chris? Why is that so funny? He was a middle-aged man called Chris. Lovely.
But yeah, I was a big fan of the course at Imperial. Big fan, to the point where when I went to the Imperial Open Day, I had a moment of being like, do I actually prefer this to Cambridge? In the end, I decided I didn't, because when I went to the Cambridge Open Day, I was just like, oh, Cambridge, it's amazing. The city's so good. I want to go here. And on the Open Day, when looking around King's, on my chest of drawers there, not the van sticker, the one below it, that's the sticker they gave me. That's on the Open Day when I went for a tour. That's the one that signifies I'm a what does it say on it? Maths and Sciences student. And I kept that on my chest of drawers ever since the 5th of July 2019.
That's so cute. That's very wholesome.
Fortunately, I got in, and fortunately I got into King's rather than another college. Not that there's anything wrong with another college, it's just that I couldn't have the sticker anymore.
There are things wrong with other colleges. That's a joke. There's nothing wrong with other
They're all
politics.
clapped except kings.
So true. No, that's a joke.
I've had a mind blank. Yes. What's next on the agenda? What were the predicted grades you applied to university with?
Now you're testing my knowledge. I'm pretty sure it was A star AA. I think it could have been A star A. I did not get A star A, because history is hard. There's a lot of content in history. Yeah, I think it was A star AA. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, yeah, which was the exact same as my offer from Cambridge, and then all of my other offers were 3 A's.
And did you put much work into your personal statement?
My personal statement was an absolute time. I had many a meltdown over it because I don't know how it is for STEM ones, but arts and humanities personal statements, especially for Oxbridge, are very odd because they want you to talk about kind of like theories and concepts and things you've read and are interested in, or that's at least how you were told kind of to write them. We had like an Oxbridge tutor. This kind of shows I went to a state school, but it wasn't like a state school. It was very much like
bougie.
It was a very
I mean, it was a music academy, basically. Oh, no. This is your sixth one, isn't it? Sorry, my bad.
They were separate.
Disproportionate Oxbridge recruitment.
So true. So we had like an Oxbridge tutor. She wasn't very helpful, to be perfectly honest. She was a STEM. She'd done a STEM degree and was a teacher of
STEM students, honestly.
Exactly, and was a teacher of I think physics. So she wasn't really much help to like people doing arts and humanities. But yeah, they kind of encourage you to talk a lot about books and things you've read. So obviously when I first wrote my personal statement, I'm talking about like my passion for English and the subject, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know about you, but I had to show mine to my like tutor that I had at sixth form. And she hated it. She said it was really bad. And that I shouldn't talk about theories. I should just talk about things I'd done. She even wanted me to state what A-levels I was studying in my personal statement. Ooh. This obviously went against everything I'd been told. And I had a meltdown in the disabled loo. Iconic place to have a meltdown.
Iconic.
Truly.
What if someone needed to use that toilet?
I know I'm an awful person. So I had to, like, I scammed her is what happened, because I showed the same personal statement to my English teacher, who was an Oxford graduate, and she said she liked it, and she said that's what I should send, gave me a few pointers, I rewrote it, I had it done, I was like ready to send it, and then Tara, my tutor,
name
was
dropping.
Like, no, name dropping.
Naughty.
Hated it. So then I wrote another personal statement according to her guidance that she would approve of, that she then she went, oh yeah, that's great, send that one, signed me all off, and then I sent the original personal statement. So then when I got my offer from Cambridge, why do I keep on saying Oxford? What is happening to me? When I got my offer,
you're turning to the dark side.
Truly, when I got my offer from Cambridge.
Oh, I've cracked it. Stephen Toop is actually the Vice Chancellor of Oxford as well. He's turning you to the dark side.
Drama, that's what it is. But she was like, oh, I bet you're so glad you followed my advice in the first place. And I was like, yeah, I'm iconic. So glad. I'm so glad. And never told her that I actually didn't send the one that she'd encouraged me to write and send. But yeah, I did put a lot of effort into it. I had to send written work as well for Cambridge. So like 2 essays that I'd written in class. But you don't work on those. They're supposed to be ones that are like already marked.
Yeah.
So I just had to like pick 2.
Yeah, I remember some of my friends having to do that.
Yeah. So I guess, I did put a lot of effort into my personal statement, but mainly because I guess it's quite important when you're when you're applying for an essay subject.
Can you write a personal statement?
To be like good at writing. Because like if you can write at one thing, I think they expect you to be able to write about yourself. So yeah.
My personal statement. I think I did 7 drafts of it before I got the final one. It was quite hard. All my initial drafts are way too long for the character limit on UCAS. So in terms of people that I actually had read my personal statement and change it. So first, like 3 drafts were all my own critique because obviously I know. Then so I have a feeling I only gave it to 3 people. So I had my mum review it because, well, she is an academic, so she can review a personal statement. I had our like UCAS officer or something, I think it's called, was our school librarian, and she always offered herself as someone to give personal statement feedback. So I had personal statement feedback from the librarian as well, and then my form tutor also gave me feedback, and then I think the final draft was me changing things on top of what they'd said. So we went through quite a few drafts, but I don't know, I guess I'm quite happy with my personal statement, even though it doesn't really mean anything. We'll get onto the Cambridge interview soon, but I wasn't asked anything about my personal statement.
No, me neither.
But I think next podcast episode, personal statement review, personal statement check.
Oh, okay, that'll be fun. We could read each other's.
What is a Cambridge worthy personal statement?
So I don't know, honestly. I know I got asked by someone the other day who I know who's applying to Cambridge, and she was like, "Oh, can you for history?" But I guess it's quite similar. And she was like, "Can you send me your personal statement?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure," but it's bad. Like it's not a good personal statement. I hate talking about myself, contrary to many people's opinion, because I do talk rather a lot. But like I'm not good at like writing things about my own kind of like life and hyping myself up, which is why my personal statement is the way it is. Like it doesn't really hype me up in the sense that I think you're kind of expected to a lot of the time.
I think something people often wonder is how important extracurricular stuff is for getting into Oxbridge. Not just your academic performance, but would you say you had much extracurricular stuff on top of just grades? Or?
So I was that kid who oversubscribed themselves with extracurricular things to distract from the empty void inside their heart.
That's deep.
It's so deep. We're
Classic
getting deep
English
on
student.
this.
We're getting deep.
We really are. So I obviously played flute, so I did a lot of music stuff when I was at school. I was also really into debate because I'm loud and talk a lot. And make of that what you will. Debating has got me into a fair few situations in my life, which are questionable. Anyway, so I was in debate club at sixth form and at secondary school as well. And then I also did stuff like kind of like student helping. And I was a prefect. I was a senior prefect.
Calm down, lass. Calm down.
I was a senior English prefect.
Senior,
at
wow.
Secondary school. Yeah, we had like a senior prefect for each subject, and then faculty ones for within the subject. So I was in charge of a group of prefects, which was very cool, very hype. Yeah, I probably didn't do that much. I did like DV stuff like that, but they don't really care.
Yeah, I don't think academic stuff is definitely the most important. I think extracurricular stuff, when it's actually related to the subject, could be seen as important.
Yeah.
More in certain cases rather than others. So let's say you're applying with predicted grades that are like just on the boundary of what they would normally expect. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe then a personal statement could tip you over the edge into them giving you an interview.
I would say so.
And also, if you do get asked in an interview, you have stuff to talk about. As it turns out, for science, they don't really care. They don't care about you. They care about your brain.
That's it. You are not a person. You are STEM and only STEM. I think for English, it's things they care about. It's stuff like engaging with your texts on like a level beyond what you would be expected to for A level. So things like I wrote about like going to see plays, like going to see Shakespeare plays, and kind of like extra reading I'd done. So I think things like EPQ then are quite helpful because you are able to kind of develop like like an area of personal interest, and kind of get used to reading academic texts that you wouldn't normally have to kind of at A level. So I think they're less concerned with you being in like clubs, but more concerned with those, like, what do they call them? They have a term for them, like hypercurricular or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a word, and
Is
I
it
can't.
supercurricular?
Supercurricular.
Yeah.
That's
Supercurricular
it.
because it's relevant.
Yeah,
So
which is like
super.
things that like things that you like hyper engage with
Yeah.
within your subject. So it's like good to have like a specific area of interest. I think like maybe that's like a period or a specific author that you get really hyped about. Mine is Virginia Woolf, as Luca knows.
I think this is something that we can definitely talk about a lot in personal statement review, because that's when you can actually see what we wrote about these extracurricular things.
Yeah, very much so.
The next thing people ask is how do you pick a college? I guess we should ask what was your thought process behind picking King's? I know we both have such great answers for this.
It's like they're really deep. Basically, I went, which one looks most like Hogwarts? That one. Which one will enable me to best live out my dark academia fantasies? That one. And therefore I picked the prettiest college. Yeah, that was the only reason, genuinely, was how it looked. Also, I guess to an extent, the fact that there's like a lot of state school students there. King's make quite a big deal out of that.
State school intake, yeah.
Yeah. And so I felt like I would maybe feel like least out of place there. But because I genuinely didn't think I was going to get in, I like really didn't put that much thought into it, like at all. I know your reason is as good as mine.
As good. Well, there's some more depth. So the overarching reason, Chapel Big. That, yeah. But then naturally, we had to look at an online comparison of the Cambridge colleges. And so quite a few of my friends applied. Quite a few got in as well. But lots of my friends applied to St. Catherine's. And there was one friend convincing everyone to apply to St. Catherine's because he had done exceptionally well in the Cambridge Chemistry Challenge, which was run by St. Catherine's. And applying to St. Catherine's increased his chances of getting an offer, basically. But he was trying to convince some of the boys to apply to St. Catherine's, and quite a few did. So there are 3 of them at St. Catherine's now. But I was not a sheep. I thought for myself.
He's not like other girls.
I'm not like other girls. But so this we were looking at this one post on the student room, which is comparing colleges. And it was very obviously written by someone from St. Cat's, because it had a list of pros and cons for every college. But then St. Cat's, all of the pros were organised into subheadings, and there are about 3 cons, and one of them was something like sometimes the front lawn's a bit unkempt, and it's like, cool. But the what really convinced me that the person who wrote it was definitely from St. Cat's was in one of the pros. They spoke all about how St. Cat's is in such a fantastic central location. But then for King's, bearing in mind King's and Cat's buildings literally touch each other.
Next door, yeah.
They said something like, "Oh, not in a great location, not that close to anything." Like,
I remember that there's an article on the Tab that's like comparing, that's like pros and cons of Cambridge. That's like the only article I looked at. That one's actually quite helpful, because that tells you like,
I mean, this student room post is quite in depth. Like, it does have quite a lot about each college, and my decision to pick King's was reinforced by the fact that King's had the second most pros after Cat's. So
wow.
Yeah, wow. He's a man of logic, this one. Bloody hell.
Truly. That's why you're a STEM student.
But yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, the college choice doesn't really matter. It's because deep down, they're all very, very similar. It doesn't really change your degree. All that changes is where you live. And in some cases, you will have college preference based on the academics there. But I have a feeling they advise against that. But
yeah, because they can change depending on.
But your experience would basically be the same at every college. And one thing, people think that if you apply to some colleges, you're more likely to get in, but that is not true, because all the colleges have the same standard of entry. So just because it looks like one has a higher proportion of its applicants getting in, that will just be because fewer apply. The people that get in are still of the same standard as people that get in anywhere else. So college choice is just what has a big chapel.
Exactly. That should be the only thing
Some
deciding.
of the
There is
other...
only one right answer
Well,
to that as
King's
well.
it has a big chapel, but there are some other colleges that have decently nice sized chapels. I believe Selwyn has quite a nice chapel actually.
It does actually. I've been in it. It's a
really?
very nice chapel. It's like small, but it's very cute. Selwyn's in a nice location actually. It's especially good if you do English because it's like just down the road from the English faculty. So yeah.
Fair enough. So did your school offer you mock interviews?
Oh well, kind of. So my English teacher was friends with a guy who taught at Winchester College. Everyone is now being like, she knows Rishi Sunak.
She knows Tarquin.
She knows Tarquin. She does know people who go to Winchester College. Unfortunately, upsetting. Anyway, and he's really nice. I can't remember what his name is, but he gave me we did like a little mini mock interview because he used to lecture at Oxford. So I don't know if he ever interviewed anyone. I don't know if he was a fellow, but he gave me a mock interview, which was like helpful. But it was very focused on my personal statement, and then obviously my actual Cambridge interview ended up not being focused on that at all. And I had a friend who also got into Cambridge from my sixth form. No, got into Oxford, sorry, from my sixth form, and she didn't do it. She like chose not to have a practice interview, so I don't think like read anything into not having one or having one.
Yeah. I mean,
Did
I guess
you?
that. So I had one for chemistry. So my school has very clear preference for Oxbridge applicants, and so quite a few of the teachers went to Oxbridge, and they always have like mock interviews and like help with admissions assessments. So we'll get on to admissions assessments in a minute, but at the start of year 13, one of my maths lessons a week was turned into like a practice class for admissions assessments. Well, vaguely mathematical ones, because it was a maths teacher helping us. But this was the same maths teacher who did maths at Trinity, and I'm told he came top of his year, which is rather impressive.
Wow, yeah.
But so in terms of mock interviews, so I was offered one by chemistry and physics. I didn't end up doing the physics one. I don't really remember why, but I'm told that it was actually quite helpful. And I think the problem so the mock physics interview was with one of the teachers, and apparently the problem which he was doing as like the interview problem, that was one of the problems. Well, like obviously he was asking it, but it was written down as a problem on our first physics problem sheet. I'm pretty sure. It's quite interesting. I won't get too into it, but it's basically about a chain. Like you hold a chain up, and so the bottom link is touching a surface, and then you drop it, and it's all about like the force on the surface and things like that. And it's actually quite interesting. Has some good maths in. But I had a chemistry interview. So one of my chemistry teachers did chemistry at Jesus College, Cambridge, and he had. So instead of him doing the interviews, he brought in. It was the dad of someone at my school in the year below me, but he did chemistry at Clare, I believe, because I remember him. He asked me what college I applied to, and I said King's, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, we didn't like you at Clare," something like that. But the interview, it was quite. I don't know. I guess in terms of, it was helpful in terms of like the experience. Like I was kind of, even though it was a mock interview, I was still a bit nervous for it. It turned out the guy doing the interview was actually very, very nice, and he said I was quite good at the end, so that was good. But what's annoying is so there's this one specific thing in chemistry, reaction mechanisms. It sounds stupid because it's drawing curly arrows, which shows the movement of electrons. But
Wait, I think I remember doing that at GCSE.
Oh, really?
Do you do that at GCSE?
You probably might have done a different exam board. We didn't do it at GCSE, but maybe your exam board did. But reaction mechanisms are quite fun, and that's definitely something that gets asked in interviews all the time, because it's the kind of thing that it like really embodies what the interviews are all about, which is like applying familiar content to unfamiliar situations. Because like you can throw someone, because like the general rules are quite similar for all reaction mechanisms, and so if you throw an unknown reaction mechanism at someone and like help basically like see how they can work through it, that's a perfect interview question. And so when it actually came to preparing for my real interview, I did lots of reaction mechanism stuff, only to not get asked any reaction mechanism stuff, which I was very disappointed about. But that mock interview was quite good, but again, it's not required. I think in terms of like how, because they say that like the key to the interview is thinking out loud, and talking through your, well, I guess it's your thought process. That's a more generalized statement, I guess. And I had already worked on that in a sense mentally, so I'd before sort of like got it into my head that I need to be talking about things. So how I approached the real interview didn't change because of the mock interview. I sort of approached them the same way. But the real interview. Oh wait, no, sorry, I've skipped admissions assessments. Did you do much? Well, I guess if you applied 2 weeks before the deadline, you maybe didn't do so much admissions assessment preparation.
I did a fair amount.
An English student doing work?
I know, but the thing is, it's all the ELAT is all kind of unseen stuff.
Oh yeah.
So there's not really that much preparation that you can do for it. All you can really do is like write a couple of essays, like do a couple of practice papers, write a couple of answers, and then I was kind of beneficial because the ELAT is run by the same exam board that I did as my A-level, so the mark schemes are very similar, like they ask for similar things, so I guess that was kind of beneficial in a way. Like that definitely helped. But I didn't really do that. It was kind of a stress though. I thought I'd failed it because I came out and then everyone was talking about the text that they'd chosen, because you choose out of like 6, I think, text to compare, and everyone had chosen different ones to me, so I instantly was like, well,
you're not like other girls.
Failed. I'm not like other girls, I'm worse.
Yes.
No, it was an absolute time, but yeah, it was fine. I didn't really have any.
So it depends on the course, but so I believe back in the day, all the subjects had the same admissions assessment, and they scrapped that, and then gradually subject-specific ones were introduced. And so the one for natural sciences was only introduced in 2016. The NSAA, they call it, a Natural Sciences Admissions Assessment. But they put very little emphasis on it because they haven't been running it long enough to have data to suggest that people who do well in it end up doing well in the degree. And like the NSAA was I practiced for it quite a while. The summer holiday between year 12 and year 13, alongside all like AS practice papers for my I had September mocks. I also did a load of practice. You can only access like 4 papers, so I ended up redoing some, but practice papers for the NSAA. And the NSAA was 2 papers, and the first one, the big thing is timing. The content's not so hard, but you have to answer 54 multiple choice questions in 80 minutes, which is rough. And then the second section is like 40 marks in 40 minutes of written answers. And those questions are more like interview style questions on paper, but except you don't have any help. So yeah, I remember thinking the admissions assessment was quite hard. I kept like working out how, like, what my theoretical maximum score could be based on how many questions I'd actually answered. But yeah, I reckon I probably didn't do so well, but well enough to get an interview, and I guess that's what matters. But
Did you
Definitely
not find out your mark?
No.
Oh.
I think I could probably request it somewhere, but I don't want to know.
We found out our mark the day before offers came out.
Really?
Which was an absolute time because they don't give offers to people who got under, I want to say 45. I think it's out of 60, maybe. And I had got over 45, so I was like, cool. But I knew quite a few people who were also applying for English, and they'd all got higher than me. Well, they'd all got full marks that I knew of.
Do you get like half mark off or something?
I got 1 mark off.
Oof. Awfully hate to see it.
I know, it's really frustrating. But yeah, it was quite funny because I was like, well, I haven't got in. And then all the people I knew who had got full marks, I say all the people, 2 people I knew who had got full marks, both didn't get offers.
Oof.
Which is interesting. That was for Oxford though.
Oh.
ELAT's interesting actually because it started off as an Oxford admissions test. I don't know if there even used to be a Cambridge admissions test for English. And then there ended up being one for Oxford. They ended up adopting the one from Oxford, I think. Bit random.
So do you have any tips for people taking the ELAT?
Ooh.
This is awkward. No, we all fluked our way in.
Everyone just got a really good insight into how I answer questions in supervisions then.
No.
I lean back in this chair, I go behind the plant.
What's the meaning of this semicolon? No.
No. Basically.
It's like you actually speaking no love heart.
Yeah, basically. I don't really have any. I think just read a lot, and then it's kind of quite helpful because you might have read some of the texts that come up.
I was going to say,
and then
it seems to me that if you don't read a lot, English at Cambridge isn't for you.
Yeah. The audacity of an English degree to have that much reading in it. Really,
the audacity of the degree having work.
What do you mean? I have to read a book a week? Excuse me? No, I mean, I don't really have any like solid advice. I would basically just say read a lot and look over the practice papers. You can get the practice papers online and past papers as well. Check out the mark scheme. Don't put too much pressure on yourself for it because it's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think they put that much weight on it.
For the NSA, I would say that it's not that important currently. Maybe that won't apply in let's say 5 years' time, but currently it's not that important. And I think it's worth looking at the practice papers because the timing is quite tight. So if you can just get in the swing of doing multiple choice questions really quickly, that'll help. But it's hard to give any concrete advice. There's no sure way to do well. So on to the big thing, the interview. The big thing. Ooh. How were your interviews? How many did you have? When were they? Did you cry afterwards?
The main questions. Mine was on something like the 13th of December. That might be wrong. I can't remember.
Mine was the 12th of December, so that's a plausible answer.
It was at 8:30 in the morning that I had to turn up for it.
Because you have to do stuff.
So I had to stay over the night before. I was with my dad. It was an absolute vibe. We didn't stay in college, we stayed in the Premier Inn. So we had to speed walk from the Premier Inn. Luca knows how far the Premier Inn is from King's. It's like, it's not a walk, but it's enough of a walk.
Yeah.
That the anxiety really has time to build.
Yes, I was going to say, that's a lot of time to think.
Yeah, in the walk over. So I basically had to turn up. I got given some pre-reading, which was a letter or an essay. I can't really remember.
Or a poem, or a play, or an article.
It was a piece of writing
a piece of music for some reason?
It was some writing that was in English.
As
And I had
opposed
go
to French,
into...
because you were not applying for MML or any kind of subject where you would also do French.
Thank you, Luca, for making that clear. And I had to go through the bar, the old bar that looked like a working man's club and had a quote from the Social Network written on the chalkboard. So I felt very comforted by that.
Oh yeah, you felt right at home.
I really did. And I had to go into a room that's like a screening room, I think, is it's used as. And I was sat in there with all the other applicants. We were sat really far apart. We had an hour and a half to read this and annotate it and stuff. So I did that. And then my interview was at like 11-ish. So we were all sat in the bar after this time chatting. Turns out I knew a guy that was there, a bit random. We had a friend in common, kind of wild. There was a guy sat in there just reading Henry II Part 2 for the lols. I was like, that's not intimidating at all. You're definitely not doing that as a scare tactic. And I trotted on over to Gibbs Building. There was the love. It was very scary. Oh, I completely forgot. I had the seminar beforehand. That was a time.
The seminar.
That's the seminar, which many people have heard about because it was a highly traumatic event for me.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
So it was 6 other applicants. 7? I can't remember. There were 6.
It's okay. We know maths isn't your forte.
Very much it's not. And then we all had to talk about this piece of reading that we had done. That was the purpose of the pre-reading, was to go over to this. They made us wait outside for ages. They were like 15 minutes late. So we were all chatting really awkwardly. It was really horrible and tense. And we were sat in this really nice old room. And it was me and 5 other boys, I think. It was 5. It might have been 6. And we sat round the table and we went through this text and we were having a nice old chat. And the interviewers were just sat in either corner of the room, one of whom is now my director of studies. And I was sat at such an angle that I just kept making direct eye contact with one of them, and it was horrible. I got shushed by a boy in my interview. He shushed me, and which, as you can imagine,
that didn't sit well
my
with
rage.
You.
It really did not. Massively engaged my rage.
Spun his jaw. Gave him a quick sucker punch.
I leapt across the table.
Clarted the man.
I should have, honestly. I was sat there in shock. I was like, this man just shushed me. The audacity. Yeah, none of them also got in there, so jokes on them for shushing me. And then we went back and we were all sat in the bar waiting, and I went over to my interview, which was about half an hour of pure hell.
Sometimes it do be like that.
It really do be. I walked in, I took my coat off, I put it in the fireplace that was unlit. I went, whoopsie.
I haven't heard this before, but it's
you
so
haven't heard that?
No, I don't remember you saying that before.
I walked in, I was so nervous. They had me sat out there for 5 minutes in this room, and I'm just there like doing breathing exercises. I was not okay. Picked off all my nail polish.
Oh, lovely.
Put my coat in the fireplace, and then I sat down. There was an exchange of pleasantries, and then Laura, who is now my director of studies, just went, "So what have you read?" And I was like, "Sorry, for A levels, like for fun. What do you mean?" She went, "Just the list." And let me tell you, the sheer like temptation of just being like, so when I was 4, I read the Biff, Chip and Kipper. Like, what the hell? What do you want me to say? It was terrifying. It was not okay. So I went through, I can't remember what I said. Like, my brain just, and I said Jane Eyre was as one of the texts. I had not read Jane Eyre for 2.5 years. You know where this story is going. So they were asking me all these questions about Jane Eyre, and we're getting deeper and deeper into the book, and I was like, I don't fucking know what they're talking about. And she asked me a question about religion in Jane Eyre, and I gave her a probably quite bad answer. And then she went, "You're giving lots of points from the first half of the book." And I went, "Well, to be completely honest, I can't really remember the plot."
Classic.
She just kind of looked at me and moved on and was like, "So Shakespeare, And we ended up talking about this one production of Taming of the Shrew that I'd seen. But obviously then the Jane Eyre thing was the only thing that preoccupied my mind. And then at the end of the interview, I got given a poem, and I had to read this poem and go through it. And I was reading, having a grand old time. I knew it was John Donne, my main man. I thought it was John Donne. They made me go through it. And then they were like, so just give your observations. What does that even mean? So I'm just talking absolute shite. I must have made some kind of sense.
Aren't you paying £9,000 a year to talk absolute shite in essay form?
That's very true. I am, yeah. And then at the end they went, do you know who this is by? And I went, John Donne. And they just looked at me. I'm going, John Donne? John Donne? And I'm just getting progressively more and more anxious. And they went, thank you very much. That's the end of your interview. And I left, and I'm like, tell me
was
whether
it John
I'm
Donne?
Right. Was it John Donne? And I know, you listener,
no,
you're
it was Rupi Kaur.
You're on the edge of your seat. You're like, was it John Donne?
Was it John
and
Donne?
I got out and I googled
The
it,
anticipation
and it was.
is... Oh, that's what got you in.
Genius, honestly.
She's read a poem.
Yeah. And then I stood by King's Lawn, by one of the lovely lampposts around the edge of King's Lawn. My father was there, and he was like, how did it go? And I was like, well, I haven't got an offer. And then we went outside, and I didn't cry that entire time. And then my mum called me and was like, how did it go? And I just started sobbing. So that was the time. There are lots of places that I've cried at Cambridge. I can walk around Cambridge and be like, I've cried there and there and there and there. If you haven't cried
the whole
on
of King's Parade.
If you haven't cried on King's Parade, are you really a Cambridge student? I think not.
It's on the bucket list.
You haven't yet, have you? I cried on King's Parade on my first day. Yeah, this was before I met you.
Well,
Evie called. I called.
Was it when
Evie and was like?
Oh, I was just going to ask what was inducing this.
Oh, I called Evie and was like, Evie, my parents just left and I'm really sad. And she was like, it's okay. Come and meet me on King's Lawn. So we went and sat on King's Lawn, and I just started sobbing because I hadn't met anyone yet, and I was really scared. And then literally like 20 minutes after I got back, I met you.
Huh.
Wow. What a turn of events. And then my life got imminently worse. That's a joke. You're lovely. I love you very much.
Thanks.
Anyway, how was your interview, Luca? Was yours as traumatic as mine?
It was quite traumatic. I didn't cry, but so it turned up. My interviews were very late in the day. I want to say, an interview at maybe like 4 and 5, or like half 3. I maybe it's half. I think it's half 3 and half 4 actually.
That's like late.
It's late. Yeah. So I just got the train up on the day. Went with my dad. I remember getting lunch at Lyon.
Lovely.
I believe I had the like poached egg, smoked salmon, and avocado, because that's just what I get every time. I don't have a really good memory. I just always get that. And yeah, went up to Cambridge, arrived a couple hours early, sat in the bar, and just crammed A-level content. As I mentioned before, I did maybe like at least half an hour on reaction mechanisms, maybe even more, only for to be asked no reaction mechanisms. My heart was broken. But had 2 interviews. First one was a chemistry and physics interview. They had just this little chair outside the interview room. You go up all these stairs, sit on the chair. The doors are thick. You can't hear anything from the inside. Mm-hmm. So you're just sat there, and then you see the person before you go out, and you can see the traumatized look on their face. And then you stand up for them to say, can you give us a minute? And that's when, they're assessing the person before you. And then eventually they call you in, shake their hand, sit down, handed a pen. So I was very nervous. My hands were very shaky. First, they only gave me an offer out of pity. First thing, the chemistry academic just says, "Tell me about water." I'm like, right. I'm familiar with him. So
I know him well.
I've consumed him. In fact, in year 7, I wrote a poem about water. that was so good the English teacher gave me a chocolate muffin.
Wow.
I didn't mention that in the interview, unsurprisingly. Basically started by drawing a water molecule. Within about 10 seconds, made a mistake. It was very minor, but I was talking about the bond angle. So you know how water's H2O, you've got an oxygen and two hydrogens, and it's the angle between those hydrogens. But when how when you're labeling an angle, you just like draw a line, like a curve. I only drew it like halfway for some reason, and then the guy's just like, "Are you sure that's the right angle?" And I'm like, "Whoopsie." But then the rest of the stuff about water was fine. There was then some comparison of water and similar molecules. That wasn't too bad. Then I had one chemistry question that I really froze up on, which was about enthalpy. This is going to be nothing to you, but I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm saying because it's A-level chemistry content.
You're like, you will just sit there and be like, he knows that my eyes glaze over. I actually ban him from speaking about anything.
Just speaking.
He's not allowed to speak.
Silence, mortal.
He enters my room, and from the moment he enters my room, he is not allowed to talk about physics or chemistry because I live with nerds. So...
Don't we all? But so it was about the enthalpy profiles for dissolving a weak acid versus dissolving a strong acid. And
yes, I know it well.
In retrospect, it's quite intuitive and does make a lot of sense, but I was completely stuck, and I would just get going. I don't think I was out loud just going but I was saying words just so it sounded like I was thinking out loud, but mostly I don't think what I was saying was actual relevance. In the end, they basically gave the answer to me. But then
considered an English degree, Luca, because that's basically what I do.
Then and then I got asked some stuff about entropy, and then that was quite funny because there's like this age-old analogy for entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder, and the second law of thermodynamics states that entropy is always increasing. And the question is, if you tidy your room, has entropy increased or decreased? You may think, oh, your room is more tidy, there's less disorder, entropy has decreased. Psych, you thought. Basically, no, entropy has increased because while your room is tidier, the disorder within the air, thermal stuff, thermodynamics, it's increased.
I do know.
But the chemistry, one of my chemistry teachers had made that analogy like very recently at the time, and so I just recited that, and I said it with such confidence. So that was good.
Well
and then I had some questions about physics. Physics, I was basically just asked one long question that I had to work through. It wasn't too bad. It was mostly just some it wasn't. It was more maths really. Like it was a physical concept, but the questions I was asked were about the maths, and then I was proving that something was equal to 0. And then I had literally the thing this right in front of me. I had one thing minus itself, but it was so each of those things was some things multiplied together, and they were in slightly different orders in the two of them. And for some reason, it didn't click in my mind that it's the same thing. I completely forgot what I was doing. I forgot I was trying to prove it equals to 0. I couldn't see it equaled 0. I stared at it for a good minute, and then the guy was just like, "Do you remember what we were doing? We were proving that this equals 0." And I was like, "Oh, yes."
You're in Cambridge.
This
You're in a
equals 0.
safe place. Who was the Prime Minister? Theresa May is the Prime Minister.
Theresa
The
Dancing
year
Queen
is
May.
2019. You are conscious. You are alive. Your name is Luca Marcion. You remember where you are.
Yeah, that was the first interview. Then the second interview was just a maths interview. Again, I basically had two questions. One of the interviews was actually the DOS. So I think I did much better in the second interview, and the fact it was with the DOS, I like to think that's what got me in. So I had one question. Basically, they sketched a graph, and I had to predict the equation for that graph. It wasn't like it was like a very simple function, it wasn't like anything really fancy that like it was like this plus this times this, whatever. It was just like cut. So there are these things called the hyperbolic functions. Like you remember sine, cos, and tan from GCSE maths. Yeah, there's like kind of equivalent things called the hyperbolic functions. Well, they're not equivalent, but they're linked. But it was basically just a y equals hyperbolic function of x, like one of the hyperbolic functions. So it's very simple, and I immediately spotted that. But I've thought, work smarter, not harder. So, well, actually, that's not even relevant here. Work smarter. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Because I ended up working harder to work smarter. But I basically went through this long-winded process of deducing. I think at that point, my thinking out loud really shone. I was something of a diamond at that point. I didn't crack under pressure. and so yeah, they seemed quite impressed by the end of that. And then he asked me another question, and it was about so it's like a game where people take it in turns to roll a dice, and whoever rolls a 6 first wins, and it's the probability that if you roll first you will win. And it works out being a geometric series. And I had a bit of a not a brain freeze to the same extent as the chemistry question, but it was another quite obvious thing that took me a bit too long to notice. So, so very basic math explanation, but the general form of a geometric series is your first term times the ratio of the terms to the power of n minus 1, where n is the order of the term. And I was trying to manipulate something to be in that form. And then I had first term times by something to the power of 2n minus 2 rather than n minus 1, which is just the thing squared to the power of n minus 1, right? And that was the form I was looking for. But I literally did that factorization, like, so it was the thing to the power of 2 times by n minus 1. And then I looked at that for ages and didn't realise that I'd done the question. I'd achieved what they were asking at that point. But yeah, that was the interview. I remember afterwards thinking that like they were okay, but not that great. But then they do say that people that think their interviews went well generally don't get in.
That is a. I mean, I don't think it's like a rule.
It's not a rule. It's not a rule.
I think people who come out and are like, "Oh my god, that went amazing."
Yeah.
Like, chances are, one didn't go that well, and they're bullshitting you because they're massively insecure, or two, they actually were like thought it went well, but it actually was appalling, and they just came across as massively obnoxious. I.e., the guy who shushed me.
Yeah, I did have one friend who said he thought his interview. He wasn't like, oh, it went so well. He said he thought it went quite well. Unfortunately, he did not get in. But this friend, I love him, but he lacks common sense sometimes. So his personal statement, before running it by any teachers or anything, he ran it by his friends. I was one of them. And we basically rewrote, well, we didn't rewrite it for him, but basically told him to change the entire thing. But I would pay good money to watch back his interview. But yeah, the interview was quite traumatic. But hey, we're here. I would say don't need to do...
We're not actually here.
We're not. I'm in my bedroom. At home. Not in Cambridge.
Woo!
But
I wanted to be there so bad.
Don't we all? Very jealous of the people that went back.
Same.
But what will I say? Interview. Thoughts. No thoughts, head empty. Yeah, so I thought the interviews were okay, but then I basically just tried to not think about it too much. Wanted to enjoy Christmas. Then offer day. Offer day was my 18th birthday.
Oh wow! Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was quite a nice birthday present. So as it got close to offer day, I had less and less faith and started thinking my interviews went worse.
Yeah.
So I was prepared for the worst on my birthday. I waited until I didn't want to open my email at school, so I waited till after school to open it. As it turns out, I wasn't emailed till like 3:30 anyway, so that was very close to the end of my school day.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't matter so much. But one friend in particular, same friend who tried to convince everyone to apply to St. Catherine's, also he was pressuring me to open my email. I didn't want to open my emails, so I went through the whole day resisting the urge to check my emails. Had teachers asking me as well. I say that I think I had one teacher, the chemistry teacher, asking me. But yeah, so then I went home. I opened it before I opened my actual birthday presents. So I went out to my bedroom, opened it by myself, got the offer. It's like, yes. I still have the offer letter on my other desk for some reason. Wholesome. But
That's very cute.
I remember the UCAS didn't update for ages, and I remember thinking it wasn't real until UCAS updated.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, offer day was a time.
It really was.
And it was kind of interesting because, so I think I want to say 40 people applied from my school to Oxbridge, and it got 19 offers. But the day after Cambridge offer decision, one of the heads of sixth form, an Oxford graduate himself, he was basically going around and asking, because he had a list of everyone from the school that applied to Oxbridge, and basically asking everyone if they got an offer or not. And then I could see the sheet, and I saw who had and hadn't. And that was a time.
Yeah, I had a similar thing because I had obviously the girl I knew who had got full marks on the ELAT and then had applied to Oxford, and obviously found out the day before she hadn't got in. So I was like, well, I've definitely not got in. So I had basically resigned myself to the fact that I hadn't got in. And my best friend, doing Tit Hall,
doing
law.
Tit Hall.
She's doing Tit Hall, doing law at Tit Hall. My best friend doing law at Tit Hall, she found out at 8, but didn't tell me that she'd found out, which is because she's a very good friend. She didn't come into school that day, which was kind of a good idea on her part. I did, and I did keep getting asked by people all day because teachers couldn't remember whether I'd applied to Oxford or Cambridge. And obviously I was in class and people were talking about the fact that they're going to Oxford, and I was like, I haven't found out yet. Please leave me alone. It's like a very heightened version of when a film's come out and you're trying to avoid spoilers for it, like the day after, when you come into sixth form the next day. It's like that very much. So then I was on the bus on the way home, and I've been very stressed all day. I've been refreshing my email, and I opened my email, turned on my mobile data, had an email from Cambridge. It didn't have anything, it didn't say offer or anything. It just said reply or whatever, decision, something like that. I opened it, and it said I'd got an offer. Had a little bit of a cry on the bus, phoned my father and my mum, who both screamed down the phone. It was very nice. Yeah, it was kind of mental. Couldn't believe. And I was I got on the bus not having a Cambridge offer, got off the bus with a Cambridge offer, then played Heroes by David Bowie on repeat for
iconic
an hour.
You are a hero.
Yeah, genuine, because I am obnoxious. Yeah, it was horrible though. Offer day was awful because even people at other Cambridge colleges had found out before. So I don't know why King's were so slow.
They seem really technologically inept.
They really are.
Wait,
they really are.
I want to read out what it's like the offer.
Oh yeah, please do.
One sec. Got this here. It says, I remember reading this in email form first. It says, "Dear Luca, thank you for coming to be interviewed at King's. We greatly enjoyed meeting you. I'm delighted to write to offer you a place to study for the following BA degree. Subject, Natural Sciences Physical. Year of entry, brackets, matriculation, 2020. Blah, blah, blah. It was a good time.
It really was. And then
Time.
I don't know if you got this as well. I got an email literally straight after saying there'd been a mistake.
Yes.
And the mistake was that the original email had said you had to take ancient Greek or something, like a starter course. But obviously I instantly went, oh my God, they've accidentally emailed me saying I'd got in when I haven't.
God, can you imagine if they'd done that? Oh,
that'd be awful. I remember once reading about, it might have been an Oxford college who basically got it completely flipped around. So emailed everyone they'd rejected saying they'd got in, and everyone they'd accepted saying they'd been rejected.
Oh.
Which is oof. Like that's a big
Would they should just offer places to everybody after that.
I'm sure someone probably got fired over that. Like,
yeah,
that's bad.
Jesus, that is
Can you
horrible.
imagine though, finding out you've got in and then you get rejected?
I guess the last and final stage to talk about, results day.
Ooh, yeah.
Did you, once you'd got your offer, how, obviously this is before we knew about exams being cancelled and stuff. When you were set to actually take your exams, how much faith did you have that you were going to get the grades? Because obviously humanities subjects are more subjective. Sciences, generally people don't struggle to say that they know they'll be able to meet the offer.
It's really hard because basically to get an A* in English the previous year, the grade boundaries had been such that you had to get you could only basically lose like 3 marks across all the papers, which is like 1 mark per paper. So obviously I was like, lol, not gonna happen. Similarly with history and law, I was not convinced I was gonna get A's in those at all, but we will never know.
We will never know.
It's gonna be a mystery. But yeah, I was like, I had very little faith because English, I was like, I could maybe blag, but I hadn't got A* in any of my essays because my teacher just like straight up refused basically to give people anything higher than 2 marks or 4 marks. Yeah, so I was like convinced I wasn't going to do it. So I was like really happy for like maybe 2 weeks, and then I was like, shit, I actually have to get the grades now to be able to go. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't convinced that I was going to, and I was even less convinced when they cancelled exams.
Oh, really?
So I was like, Jesus, because I hadn't ever got an A* in class in English, so I just figured Kate wasn't going to give me an A*, but Queen, she pulled through.
So on results day, obviously you got in. Did you get in before the U-turn, and did your grades change after the U-turn?
I did get in before the U-turn. A lot of my friends didn't. They had to wait until after the U-turn to get into their unis. Hell. I know, mental. But yeah, I did get in before the U-turn. I was sat at this very desk. I remember my college had told me that the results would be live at 6, so I was up at 6, refreshing.
I actually went into school to collect my results. I knew that I'd gotten in because I checked UCAS sitting right here in this chair. So I was quite lucky. So I think UCAS went live at 8 or something, and I straight away 8 I was there. I had friends that were there from 8 but didn't log in until like 8:30. I think I successfully logged in like 8:09, something like that.
It did crash, and it was really so I found out they were on my like college intranet, which they said would be live at 6 but wasn't live until 8. So I was sat here for 2 hours refreshing a page. It was not okay. I was not okay. And then I eventually got UCAS to load.
Actually went to school, picked up my results, and fortunately before the U-turn I got what I wanted. My results didn't change after the U-turn, so obviously everyone wants to know, what did you get? I got A* and everything because class of 2020 didn't have to take the exams. Step 1, go to a school that gets A* in your subjects. So actually my 4 subjects were the 4 subjects that got the most A* in previous years at my school. Step 2, try hard in everything, including class tests and mock exams. I'm actually looking back, I'm so happy, right? Because throughout my education, at times I have been quite lazy, but I did, for class tests and mocks, I did actually do some revision. While people around me weren't doing revision, I always did revision. And I could never have anticipated that actually would have come in handy.
Literally, yeah.
So I'm very happy with that. I'm wondering, on results day, you could email and ask where you were ranked for each subject. But I wonder if that's still open, because I never did, and I'm still quite curious.
I never asked. I know I wouldn't have been top for any of them.
I have a feel. So I know I was top for chemistry because on results day, one of the teachers told me. But then I know that I wasn't top for the other three because my friend who also does natural sciences at Emmanuel, I can almost guarantee he was top for those three. I think I could have been second, but I have no idea. I like to think I was at least top 5. I think the fewest subject with the fewest A stars in the previous years of the 4 that I did had like 8 A stars, which is quite a lot. So I didn't even have to be ranked that highly to get the results. But
no, I got A star, AA, and then an A star in my EPQ.
Oh.
My EPQ was the one I was arguably proudest of because I put a shit ton of work into that.
Fair enough, yeah.
Considering how, like, the fact that it literally meant nothing because it wasn't included in any of my offers. But yeah, I did decent. I wasn't unhappy. I'm still, in my heart of hearts, I think that if I'd done a shit ton of revision for history and then taken the exam, I could have theoretically maybe got an A star. But we will never know. And I'm not mad about it because I still got into Cambridge. So
there you go. Yeah, I think initially, because I, as a STEM student, I sort of knew that, well, obviously don't know, but I was very optimistic and thought that I would meet the offer had I taken the exams, because like I'd done all of year 12 and the start of year 13 and I knew the level I was performing at, and I thought it was quite unlikely that would go down so significantly after revising, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. And then when they announced the like predicted grades, so a lot of my friends did get a bit screwed over by that and were not fans of it, and that's completely understandable, and I know it was a terrible system, but I remember thinking, yes, this is going to work out brilliantly for me.
Same.
No exams, 6.5 months summer holiday, pretty much guaranteed to get the grades I need.
Yeah, I was kind of the same.
So I fully admit that the system was awful, but it was quite in my favour.
It did benefit. I think if you went to a good sixth form, you kind of weren't as worried.
Yeah, like if you were like an anomaly, if you were like the best student the school had for some years, then the odds were not in your favour. But I'm glad so I guess there's the argument of grade inflation, but like most people are using those grades to get into university, and once you've got your degree, your A-level results, if some people have inflated A-level results, it won't really matter because they'll still have the degree will be the main focus of the job application or whatever application it is. Yeah, that I think concludes the Odyssey, the journey to Cambridge, from small children who could barely read to us intellectual powerhouses sat in our bedrooms rewriting history,
grafting away.
Yeah.